This is what happened to me. I had retired from Bell Canada in 1991, and it was a couple months after I retired. And I went to the family farmhouse, and I was whitewashing to brighten up the cellar. A house built in 1831 is not a basement, it's a cellar. The cobwebs, the stone, the dirt. So I was just whitewashing. Then all of a sudden, I got a violent headache. I have no memory that any of this ever took place. I have to go by what I was told. And I managed to make it up the stairs, and there was a young lady who was living with our daughter there at the time. And she saw there was something drastically wrong with me. And she got me outside into the car, and she took me straight to the hospital in Paris, the Willett Hospital. Dr. Hutton in Paris saw me, and immediately he put me into an ambulance. I asked him about 4 years later when I saw him, how did you know there was something wrong with me? He said, because I tried to get you to lay down, and all you want to do is hold your head as high as possible. That's where the least pain was. He said, I knew you were hemorrhaging. So he put me in an ambulance, sent me to Hamilton, and they called Dr. DeVilliers on a Wednesday morning. Dr. DeVilliers came in, and he took a look at me, and he knew I had a serious problem. He couldn't do anything until the swelling went down. And on Saturday morning, it was a 6.5 hour operation. He went into my head right here where my finger is. I had a blood vessel that burst, and he operated. After the operation was finished, he told my wife to phone the boys and her daughter, tell them all to come home right away, because by morning I'd be gone. There was absolutely no hope whatsoever. That was in 1991.
On May 26th, I had Griffin. I had him at St. Joe's Hospital in London. 2 days later, on May 28th, I had my aneurysm. And since I had just had Griffin, I was still in St. Joe's, and they rushed me from St. Joe's to UH, University Hospital in London, where they had emergency brain surgery. I was in a coma for, I want to say 10 days or so, maybe a little bit longer, I'm not sure. And I was in UH for a month in intensive care and stuff like that. And then from UH, I went to Parkwood, and I was in Parkwood for 4 months.
You were exercising.
Yes, sure.
You enjoyed exercising. You got a clean bill of health the week before. So there was no, as far as Steve knows, I don't think, any warning sign. You had risk factors.
No.
Although your daughter denied, you were smoking.
Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah. And so she said because of that and also a high-stress lifestyle may well have contributed.
No.
But some of us also want denial. Who knows?
You know.
My mom has high cholesterol. She already have the medication on, but unfortunately she got a stroke in 1998 in September during the Labor Day vacation, going to somewhere in Ovillia with my brother, and she got the stroke at night, and then she was, some people found that it must be a stroke, and then she was rushed to the hospital in Ovillia, and fortunately she was saved, but she lost her speech ability, and then she also got paralyzed on her right hand side because it's the brain damage on her left side, happened on her left brain. So she has lots of medication, and she also has a therapy that helps her to recover, but it's a long way to go.
I came into work, sat down at my desk, Got everything organized to start. I was sitting here talking on the phone when all of a sudden I got a blinding headache. I tried to get off the phone. I sat for a second hoping it would go away, and it wouldn't. And I thought there's something very wrong, so I got up. I walked to the door, opened the door, and luckily my husband was right outside the door.
On a Sunday afternoon on the 2nd of August, we were out with Leanne's future in-laws looking at houses for her and her new husband-to-be. And it started to rain, and I developed a bit of a headache. The way I remember it, my head was kind of pounding to the beat of the windshield wipers in the car on the way home. But it wasn't bad enough for me to think anything was really wrong. We came in the house about 3:30, and Doug was watching the Olympics. It was the Summer Olympics on television, and I went to lay down. And about 10 to 4 in the afternoon, I was looking at the clock, and all of a sudden, the ceiling started to spin, and I had a really sharp pain go up the back of my neck. And instantly, I couldn't speak. It was just garble coming out of my mouth, and I was instantly paralyzed on my left side. My right side, it was like I was trying to push a rock off when they tried to get me to move. It was probably, what they tell you now is when you have a tragic illness like that happen suddenly, you have this real feeling of doom come over you, and that's the only way I could describe it. It was horrific. I was trying to yell for Doug, and he came flying into the bedroom, and he looked at me, and he said he knew instantly that something was really seriously wrong, and he couldn't remember the telephone number to call the ambulance. Shortly after that, after this experience, he started a 911 program for this area just because of that particular instant. Anyway, I found myself being rushed in a Code 4 ambulance called a Perry Sound, and I was admitted with a diagnosis of a massive stroke, which eventually was going to end up in permanent left-sided paralysis.
I was out at my daughter's at the time. I was looking after one of my grandsons, and I was alone with him, and I had been vacuuming. I don't think that had anything to do with causing it, but all of a sudden I had a weakness in my right hand and right foot. I walked a little distance up from one room to another, and I could notice my foot was kind of flopping. So right away, stroke came to my mind, and my main concern was I should get to the hospital as soon as possible. And yes, at that point, it did bother me to think that maybe this is just the start, and it could get worse, because I've read and I've also seen people that have had worse strokes than I had. So I was very concerned, but I tried not to panic because my grandson was only 10 at the time. So I did talk to the nurse on telehealth, and she said, yes, I should go to the hospital as soon as I could. And that was after I told her all the symptoms. And I said to my grandson, if I should get that I can't talk, or if I should fall, that he should dial 911 immediately.
Well, I was talking on the phone with my friend making dinner arrangements, and he noticed that I was slurring my words. And he said, Candace, what's wrong with your voice? And I said, nothing. He said, yes, there is. I'm hanging up and I'm calling back. So he hung up and he called back. I was still on the phone pushing the buttons trying to find what line he was on. And he told the receptionist to get somebody to come in my office and check on me because I was having a stroke and to call 911. And they came and checked on me, called 911, and I was at Sunnybrook in 29 minutes. And because I was there so quickly, I was able to have TPA treatment, which burst the blood clot on my brain, and I had a full recovery and was home within 2 weeks.